Hello, munchkins, mommies, and daddies. This is your friend Akhil Dua with another episode of Pit 2 Things They Don't Teach You in School. My guest today is Sadia Saeed from Inner Space Therapy. Sadia will help us understand how to make our kids emotionally intelligent and handle challenges life will throw at them. Please enjoy. Sadia, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining our show called Pit 2 Things That They Don't Teach You in School. Did you play Pit 2 while you were a kid?
I don't know what is a version of Pittu that I played. What does it look like?
Lagori or Pittu,
Of course.
the
Lagori.
ball.
Lagori we played.
Yeah, Lagori.
Lagori
Yeah.
we played.
So it's the
Pittu, we
same
don't
thing.
call it Pittu, but Lagori. Ligorcha and Lagori and
Correct.
these
Correct.
names is what I'm used to. Yeah, of course we
Yeah.
played that.
Tell us a little bit about your background in the past 20 years as a therapist. Very briefly, what you do and
Sure.
what has been your experience.
So I have been working as a therapist. I passed out as a clinical psychologist, and then psychotherapy has been my area of expertise all along. And I had a private practice. I worked with some hospitals and some other organizations. I helped the school develop its resource center, a counseling room in the beginning. And that was early times when counseling centers were just coming up in school.
Right. Yeah.
So it was very early in the game, around 2000, maybe 4 or 5, when we worked with that. And then around 2010, I had worked for about 10 years. There were a lot of clients. So I said, okay, let's get some more people into the system.
Mhm.
And then we grew as a center. So at the moment, we have about 8 to 10 therapists, all work with different fields. We have marital therapists. We have people who work with trauma, people who work with adolescents and children. Their own areas of expertise, couples work, etc.,
Yeah.
dance and movement therapists, so and so on and so forth. Personally, my interest is in the area of mindfulness and meditation and how it kind of joins in with psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And last 8 or 10 years, I've been doing a lot of work in that space. How to
Okay.
get Indian philosophy, what it says about mind training. It has been totally verified by neuroscience now. So we using that psychology, neuroscience, using science of the body, which is somatic psychotherapy, and making all of this into a meaningful system to address issues of my clients or even groups that I work with, organizations that I work with.
So I have a lot of friends who have kids in the ages of 8 to 12 to 13. And just chatting with them, I always see that there's challenges that they go through. So having a crush on a guy or having a crush on a girl is, very common. Bullying, unfortunately, is becoming something that is of concern as well. And then the worst of them is competition, which, even if kids don't want to compete, there's just so much pressure to.
Yeah, I think the problem is a little more systemic than just parents, school. I mean, it's something which is a little more, which needs a little more wide understanding, adopting a wide understanding, because children who were leaders in school are not necessarily people who are leaders in life.
Mhm.
Children who didn't do very well in school have still done great at, let's say, startups and other things, and have done wonderful work there.
Yeah.
So this is constantly showing us that there is no one path.
Yeah.
In our minds, there is one path. You do well in school, then you do well in college, then you do get great jobs, then you get money, then you get a house loan, then you get a house, then da 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 da. That's a path we think is the right path, or we think is an ideal path. But actually, there is evidence to the contrary everywhere also. Having said that, what are the skills that seem to be helping people in organizations? I mean, I think it's more important to help to understand what will help children tomorrow than what will help them today. And time and again, evidence has found that emotional intelligence
Mhm.
is a little, given that you have a regular, normal, average, above average IQ, emotional intelligence determines how well you fit into the system, how well you are able to adjust to the system, how well you are able to work with a team.
Yeah.
Skills that are actually required in organizations
Mhm.
today. So over and over, we see, when I work with organizations, when I work with companies, emphasizing collaboration over competition.
Yeah.
And yet in education, we are working more with competition over collaboration. So it seems a little, it's not logical. If
Yeah,
you
it's
see what's
outdated.
happening on the field, it's not. It's outdated. It's outdated. We are having programs leading people inside out, not top down. Okay, how much leadership training is going on, which is completely against the idea of hierarchy, competition, superiority, a more horizontal approach rather than a vertical approach to leadership. So if we have to learn from this, at least now we have to start understanding that this change has to percolate and go down into starting working at home and in school in a slightly different way. We can't continue working the way we were working.
Yeah.
So now let's look at the actual problems you said. Okay, what are the problems with bullying? What are the real issues? Is infatuation an issue, or is the low self-esteem that comes with rejection an issue? See, what does a person who is infatuated go through? A personal sense of rejection, if that happens, and shame in front of others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we actually have to teach children to work with shame and rejection, not work with infatuation. Infatuation is not the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Now, again, one step down. So the approach has to be, emotional intelligence is like that. You have to go one step down. One step below infatuation is a sense of rejection and shame. One step below that is a sense that if I am rejected, I must not be good enough. If people are laughing at me, I must not be good enough.
Yeah.
Then that belief, which is not true, is getting internalized.
Yeah,
so I am not good
for the
enough.
rest of your life then, right?
Yeah, I'm not good enough. And then that's a sticky one, because that leads to an emotional low. So what are we trying to tell kids? It doesn't matter. No matter what, you're good enough. But just telling this cannot work. The system has to embody this. Right? And in that sense, the system has to stop saying this kid is better than that kid is better than that kid. Oh, you should not ever be embarrassed. Parents have to learn to take embarrassment and shame better in their stride. Right? And at the very core, as human beings, we have developed a lot of defensiveness to vulnerability. The truth is, we are vulnerable. You like someone, there you are vulnerable because you can get rejected. Does that mean you keep saving yourself and stop liking people? No. It means you go out there, like with a freedom, and rejection is part of the game. It's not a big deal. That message is what we have to first embody as adults, because I don't think adults understand this either.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if their kids are embarrassed, they are even super embarrassed. So, there is no real acceptance of vulnerability, shame, and rejection, even in the self. So naturally, there is not going to be a transference of those emotions to the child. So as a population, we need to be more emotionally intelligent, more understanding of what is going beneath what, and what is really the stuff we have to stay with. There's a very interesting concept in the Yoga Sutras. It's a concept called Abhyasa and Vairagya.
Abhyasa?
It means and Vairagya.
Okay.
It means that you do what you have to do with full diligence, but you simultaneously learn to let it go. It's a combination of skill that you develop, which means you work the joy of it, not for the attachment you have to the result. Right? This has been over and over repeated. This has been repeated in all Indian philosophical traditions, texts, that you are too attached to the results. Now, the problem is, even we keep rewarding results as a society. We don't reward intentions and actions. We reward results. Okay. Yeah. If a child is kind to someone, I don't think we are very rewarding towards that child. If that kindness brings fame, then we become very rewarding to that child. If that kindness becomes tangible, we become right. So we are not supporting the action; we are supporting the consequence of the action. We have to shift that to support the action, right?
Can you think of an example? Or let me see if I can come up with something. If a child, let's say a child is 8 years old and is really inspired by one of his uncle or one of his aunts and wants to start a business. I'm just throwing this out. And the business is about t-shirts or about stickers. Right? Now, immediately the parent says, "Paisa kahan se layega? Ya paise kaise banayega?" Or all. I guess how should a parent encourage the child without, obviously you want to give them the the freedom to express and go out and take and explore this. How do we teach them that it is okay to explore without having that fear of failing?
That's what I'm saying. That first of all, you have to stop being so uh, hyper
Serious.
stuck on consequences. Yeah, hyper stuck on consequences of the child's intentions. I mean, this is something. If you sit and just hear the plan out, okay, there's no problem for pointing out consequences, no problem pointing out hurdles and saying, okay, you will need to cross these hurdles, figure out how you will do that.
Yeah.
But at least sit and hear out the plan instead of dismissing it. And it's not just about mollycoddling your children. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, can you embody that again? When you can you work at something without getting terribly afraid of the results? Can you do it? That's the bigger question for me. If you embody it, children will embody it. You generating that support towards yourself helps the kid to generate that support towards himself or herself, right? Because it is about supporting yourself through rejection, through shame, through fear, doing things even if you're afraid,
Yeah.
right? And recognizing that consequences are actually not in your hands. The truth is, part of the result is dependent on your action. There are 1,000 other factors that come and make a result happen. You're not alone making any result happen here. Your action is part of the story. So recognizing that, doing your best and seeing where it goes.
There are some circumstances, some very unfortunate circumstances, where a child might lose a parent or might lose their grandfather or grandparents or maybe even a close friend. And I don't think we as adults know how to deal with it. And it is obviously,
Absolutely.
it is crazy to expect them to do it. But what have you seen? What has worked in such children?
Unfortunately, we have never been able to provide good amount of bereavement and grief support, not just to children, but also to adults.
Yeah.
Everybody just gets over a death. That's it. Like mourns for a while and gets over. We don't sit with grief, understand grief at all. So if a person has lost someone suddenly, especially and a child especially who doesn't understand death and grandparent and close friend, I would think a very good thing to do would be to actually, as a family, contact a professional who can help and the whole family can work through it. And there are so many beautiful ways of working through it. You can sit with it, you can use art for it. There's so many ways to work with children and grief.
Yeah.
The idea is just to make grief safe to feel, because it's an unsafe emotion, because it's a permanent loss. It's an irreparable loss.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. It's very unsafe to go there. Parents also don't know how to go there. Most people don't know how to go there because they're so afraid that when we get into it, we will not be able to contain the sadness that will come or the pain, but not allowing it, not allowing the child to process it can lead to a lot of emotional difficulties later in life.
Yeah, I just thought of a really relevant quote. It said something like, you will not resolve it just because you faced it, but you will never be able to resolve it if you never faced it. So it's that situation where you might not be able to resolve everything, that the sadness that comes out, but there is absolutely no chance of resolving it at all if you never sit down and go through it. There's a very delicate and very taboo issue, I think, all over the world, not just India, and that's with body shaming and this whole thing about not being confident with our bodies. It's unfortunate. It's more with young girls than boys, I think. This whole thing about being skinny and being fair. This fairness thing is just an added trouble in India. I have not seen it anywhere else. As if it wasn't enough that weight was an issue. Now we have to deal with skin color as well. How do I raise my child to be confident in their bodies, in their skin?
By you liking them for their bodies and skins, first of all, and you liking yourself with your body and skin.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, you cannot make your child safe in their bodies if you're not safe in yours. So, for example, if a mother is all the time watching her weight, or what is the relationship that their parents have with their bodies? Is it a relationship of nourishment
Mm.
and care, or is it a relationship of presentation and makeup?
Mm.
Okay, one is the body we present to the world. That is well clothed, well clean, made up, good looking.
Yeah.
What is the relationship that you have with your body actually? Do you care for it? Do you smoke? Do you have a lot of junk food? How do you basically treat yourself?
Yeah.
How do you treat your body? Do you treat it, or you're obsessed with it? You're obsessively exercising because even an inch here or an inch there is a problem for you. So, on one end of the spectrum is this obsessiveness and doing healthy things, but to an obsessive level, which is
Mm.
another extreme. The other extreme is putting in all kinds of stuff into your body, not having a great relationship with it, not caring for it at all. Now, if you are going to be in any of these extremes with your body, you naturally pass it off as at least the child may or may not pick it up fully, but you do your job of passing it on, right?
Okay.
So, like I said, parents alone, at no point am I saying parents alone can figure all of this out. I'm saying they can only model helpful, adaptive behavior, responses, thoughts. The child may or may not pick it up. You may
Yeah.
be great to your child with overweight, the child may still pick up all kinds of messages from the system and feel terrible about it. So there is no final way to fix this.
Yeah.
You can't fix it. So going on this fixing child spree is also not helpful. You have to realize that's an independent, human being, and you have to trust the process. He or she will have their own growth. Our children will grow in their way, learn their lessons, fall when they have to fall, rise when they have to rise, just like we did.
Yeah.
So you can't be overly obsessed fixing children, but you can help them by at least giving them a template of helpful behavior because you're adopting it. That's what,
Okay.
like for example, parents who have good healthy practices like meditating, when they are angry, they just say, okay, I'm going to take 5 minutes off and I'm going to sit quietly. The child might still scream at the top of his or her lungs, and the child might still throw a tantrum. But when the child is 20, when the child is 18, they may think, oh, my mother used to sit quietly when she got angry.
Yeah.
You don't know when it will apply.
Yeah.
So your job is to open your shop and lay out helpful templates. What they choose and pick is not your problem, and you can't ensure it.
What a wonderful way to test your meditation practice and to have a child at home who's screaming, right?
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely. It is an opportunity for your practice.
anybody can meditate under a tree or in front of the mountains, but try and practice in while there's traffic on the road and
Child is screaming.
child screaming in the
Yeah.
car.
That's the practice. That's the real practice, actually. The practice is not to meditate under silent tree with sounds as it sounds. The
Yeah.
real meditation is about creating an ability to not react with what is happening now, whatever that may be, pleasant or unpleasant.
It seems like, Sadia, that the parents have to do a lot of work.
Human beings have to do a lot of work because we are conditioned to have all these kind of beliefs in our system.
Yeah.
Right? We are conditioned to believe in things that are not true.
Yeah.
Beautiful is better is something we take, for example, without a question. Is it true? Have we sat to ask it, is it true? Have we met beautiful people and said, hey, are you really happier than people who are not? Is it consistently true? No. No. In fact, people who are beautiful go through hell in a whole different,
Yeah.
who are conventionally beautiful, go through a whole different kind of hell.
Yeah.
Right? So, the very fact that we're taking this, like this guy's child is better, itself has to be questioned. What really says this is better?
Yeah.
What is really better? I'm writing a book for actually 11 to 14-year-olds. And we also do a program called Breathing Happiness for 9 to 12-year-olds. And these are programs exactly that address these kind of tendency to compare yourself with others. What happens when your parents compare? you with others, how can you respond, etc. And it's a meditation, mindfulness based, being in the the present moment based program. And the book is also that. The book is practices of mindfulness and presence for children
Yeah.
of 11 to 14 years. And there is one analogy that I give to children in that book, and we give in our programs, which is nature does not make differences. For when nature makes a dog lame, for us, for our judgmental mind, that's a lame dog. It is inadequate, it is not enough, it is a poor thing, it is bechara. For nature, it is not bechara.
Yeah.
Nature never would create a lame dog if nature didn't need to create a lame dog.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't create special and unspecial people. Nature creates what nature needs. If nature created you, it's because you're as needed as the next person. Okay? And nature gives qualities that are visible, like a good voice, a good sense of dance or rhythm, good academic skills, and they get seen. To some people, nature gives an ability to be tidy and organized, an ability to be kind and empathetic. Maybe gifts that are not seen by society that easily. But nature gives everybody something. It needs everybody in the system. And so it needs people who are difficult to you. It needs you. It needs people who are kind to you. Nature is not making that difference. So don't use your mind and make that difference all the time. Like, believe that you're made, nature has created you. Be happy with who you are. And recognize, like everybody, you have your gifts. It's the same. Imagine you're telling this to children, but I feel you need to tell this to parents as much. Every time I write something for the children, I feel, okay, but the parents also need to know this.
Is there anything else that's important that we have not covered?
All I would say is that don't be so sure for yourself or for your children that there is a right path. There is a path for everybody. That's all. There is no right path. There's no one path that if your children walk, they will definitely be better off than another path. Nothing like that. People go, do all the right things, do engineering, IIT, IIM, leave their jobs and sit and do organic gardening and organic farming. There's a path for everybody. So don't be so sure that there's a right path. Don't be so focused on making your children walk that path or on walking that path. Little bit we have to learn to trust the process. Life is a larger thing, and everybody has qualities that will bloom and grow given the space for it. So I would say if you have a little lightness around your kids and yourself, you hold everything a bit lightly, it will be happier for everybody involved. Even parents are extremely stressed trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
2 generations back, parents didn't care. They were like, we produce kids, we'll give them food, then they'll figure it out. Nowadays, parents are so worried about their kids that there's something called helicopter parenting that has come up, right? They're all the time obsessing. Like, space is good for the kids, boredom is good for the kids. Not going to so many classes and just trying to figure out how to handle their boredom is great for kids. So let's not be so sure that we know what is right. That's all.
So I really appreciate Sadia, you coming on the show, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Nice being here.
Let me just hit